Hi folks, it's Eric. Welcome back to our June monthly video newsletter. Hope you enjoyed last month's. Dad did a great one on sharpening tools. That'll be a great value to you if you're carving a lot of signs, which we do. So if you can grind your own tools, it'll save you a lot of money in having other people grind your tools. So I hope you got a lot from that. Dad did a great job on it. This month we're going to talk about directional carving, what we refer to as directional carving. Now, directional carving just refers to the direction that you want to carve your signs based on a lot of different factors. The types of woods, the grains within those types of woods, and I'm going to show you hopefully how to recognize what is going to be a tough sign to carve and what's going to be an easier sign for you to carve based on the way the grain looks. So we're going to go into that. A lot of it has to do with how sharp your tools are, and again, what you are carving. So I'm going to shut this down and we're going to move into the shop, and I'm going to have a lot of different kinds of boards there, some scrap boards where we're going to do some layout and do some carving on it and give you an idea of what we're talking about. Alright, we'll meet you in. Okay guys, we're here in the shop. Now what I want to go over right now is just a few different kinds of boards that I've used and still use, depending on my material availability. What I have here is a piece of redwood. This is nice and dry. Whatever kind of wood that you're going to use, just make sure that the moisture content is down. We normally recommend kiln dried wood, but it doesn't have to be kiln dried. It can be air dried wood, but just make sure that the moisture content is down around 10% or less. Otherwise it's going to cause problems with carving and sanding and finishing. Okay, so here's a nice piece of redwood, nice and dry. This is just a piece of pine, nice soft pine. This carves real nice too. And here we have a piece of Western red cedar. Now you'll notice that this has a lot of different grains in it. This is laminated board. We have a company out of California, a mill that actually manufactures boards for us, and we do a lot of big commercial signs. In fact, I've got a bigger board over here, and they make really big boards. This is a fairly small board compared to what they make for us. So this is really, really nice. But again, it's very dry, and you'll see most of the grains are nice and tight. Makes really, really great looking signs, especially when you put a finish on it. But any of these boards actually will make terrific looking signs. This just happens to be a Western red cedar laminated that we use for some of our big commercial stuff. So I wanted to go over some of these kinds of boards. Now there's another kind of board that honestly I don't have a sample of right here. It's called Northern White Cedar. I've tried it several different times, and if you happen to be in the Northeast, you might have that available to you. Unfortunately, I'm in the Southwest, and so it's a long ways away, so I don't use it a lot simply because the shipping charges getting it here, it gets kind of expensive. But if you're in the Northeast where you can get a hold of some white cedar, northern white cedar, it carves really, really nice. Again, make sure the moisture content is down. If it has a lot of moisture in it, you're going to have problems. Not with just routing, but sanding and finishing also. So that's just a little segment that I wanted to go over about kinds of woods. Now we're going to go on to the next segment, and I'm going to talk about vertical grain as compared to flat grain and which directions you should go based on several different factors. So we'll move on. Okay guys, I'm back. So what we have here is two pieces of redwood. Now these pieces of redwood look almost virtually identical, but there's a big difference between the way these are going to carve. Let me show you why. What we have is we have two different types of grains on these boards. We've got what we call a flat grain on this one, and we've got a vertical grain on this one. Now on this vertical grain, you'll see that the grain travels through the board almost straight through in this direction. Okay, that's called a vertical grain. And this is called a flat grain because this is where the rings of the tree show up. the grain is traveling more this direction. Now, what's going to happen is when you start carving these boards, you're going to see that because of this flat grain, you only have a few grains that you have to deal with. Generally, if your cutter isn't super sharp, when you hit these grains, you're going to feel them. Okay? Now on this vertical grain, because you have so many more grains, you've got a lot tougher job, especially if your cutter, again, isn't super sharp. So I'll show you something in a little bit of how we can kind of overcome that a little bit. But I wanted you to understand what the difference is between this vertical grain board and this flat grain board and the way that you're going to carve. So this is another reason that you want your cutters always as sharp as you can get them. Like Dad showed last month in the newsletter, how to keep your cutters super sharp. This is where it will really show up. So this is, again, this is flat grain, this is vertical grain. I would much rather carve a flat grain sign. I've got much better chance of holding a straight line than if I'm carving that vertical grain. So that's the difference in the two boards. Okay guys, you know what? That's it for June. I got so much more that I want to share with you on directional carving that there's just no way I can fit it in the June newsletter. So I'm going to roll this over to the July newsletter, and you'll be seeing that shortly. So we're going to actually fire up the router and do some carving. I'm going to get into some actual examples of carving in the both different directions and why and all of that kind of thing. So I hope this was helpful to you as far as woods and grains and that kind of thing. Be sure and check out our website, greatinfoforyou.com. That's GR8info, I-N-F-O, the number 4 and the letter U.com. We got a lot of great changes coming up really shortly. So keep checking back on that website on a regular basis. We got new stuff coming out and some really neat changes coming on there. So have a great one, and I'll see you on the next newsletter in July. Take it easy. See you later.